Got an old car? You can donate it, whether it's running or not, to the United Breast Cancer Foundation and save a life. They'll even come and pick it up for free. The United Breast Cancer Foundation has saved hundreds of women's lives through their free or low-cost breast screen exams. But now they need your help. The United Breast Cancer Foundation wants to save more lives through early detection by offering women free or low-cost breast screening exams. And donating your old car, SUV, or truck, whether it's running or not, helps pay for them. Plus, you get a charitable tax deduction. Help the United Breast Cancer Foundation save lives by donating your old car, SUV, or truck. Call now for free pickup. 800-280-2144. 800-280-2144. 800-280-2144. Call right now. That number again is 800-280-2144.
The following is a live copyrighted presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time now for RadioLawTalk.com with your host, Frederick Penny, attorney at law. And now, RadioLawTalk.com.
Welcome to Hour 2 to the Two Stooges and Denise. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of things this second hour. If you want to call in, call us. Yeah, there you go. Radio Law Talk, 855-LAW-RADIO, or tweet us at Radio Law Talk. Go to our website, www.radiolawtalk.com. You know what? If you are listening to this live from our website, please call your local radio station and remind them that you need to put Radio Law Talk on. Welcome to the Armed Forces Radio Network. This is our first week with the Armed Forces Radio Network. Thank you for putting us on worldwide. This is exciting for us, and thank you, those men and women in uniform, for serving our country. You know what? A couple of things we're going to get into. The first thing we want to talk about as we get going is the Manafort trial that Todd and I know Denise has talked some about it, but Todd and I have extensively talked about it. I didn't tell you this, Denise, but I was on the air Friday on a national radio show. They talked to me a lot about this, and I've got 3 hours worth of discussion, and Todd and I talked about it in detail, but there's some interesting things going on with the Manafort trial.
And with the judge.
Yeah, and with the judge.
Is a character.
He is a character.
Yes, and we're going to talk about that this hour because that's fun. We already talked about Charlie Sheen. I just tweeted out, if you want to look at our Twitter account, go look at the tweets we're putting out. We're going to talk about Harvey Weinstein again. The Trump administration lawsuit about the family separation issue, duck boats. We got all kinds of things going on. But welcome back to hour number 2, and thank you, Amargosa Valley, for listening in again. One of our favorite areas that carries our radio station, which, by the way, it's kind of outside of Las Vegas. It's not too far outside Las Vegas. So
near Area 51, is that right, Cal?
Right there.
Right there.
It is right there.
Well, let's talk about the Manafort trial. Okay.
All right.
So Mueller, so we know we've been talking all along about Mueller, this investigation that's going on. I mean, whether or not it's political, is or isn't a political issue. But Manafort, let's go over who Manafort is. He is basically what he does for a living in his law firm. He's a lawyer. Is kind of like a consultant. They're consultants to individuals in political instances. And he was a campaign person and then later manager for Trump in 2016. Mm-hmm. And he has a guy by the name of Gates who's his partner. And or at least business partner. That's notice.
Thank you for clarifying there.
Thank you for clarifying. He is a business partner. And the issue comes down around 2014. People think it's all political, and it may be political. I'm not saying it's not. But in 2014, they started investigating him even before he gets involved with Donald Trump, okay? And they're investigating him for some of his things that are happening as he was a consultant for the former president of is it Ukraine?
The Ukraine.
And who was somehow tied with Russia, and they wanted to see kind of what was going on there, so they started investigating him. He has a lot of offshore accounts. Individuals have testified or have said that, look, they haven't testified yet, but they've said apparently, and this is, by the way, all allegations. Everything we say is allegations at this point. That so far they would get checks from foreign country, a foreign area of a company they never heard of, like Todd's post-dated
two-party out-of-state post-dated check.
Yes. Similar type of thing.
Absolute currency.
So kind of what's going on is they now bring him, a grand jury indicts him in Virginia. Now there's two cases going on.
Two cases.
We've got one in Washington, D.C., and we've got one in Virginia. Now those, a lot of people just hear the basics. They don't realize there's two separate cases. The one in Washington, D.C. is, by the way, the judge overseeing that is an Obama-appointed judge, Obama-appointed in D.C.
That's right.
The one in Virginia is a Reagan-appointed judge that is kind of leans more conservative in the state of Virginia. The state of Virginia is going after Manafort for tax evasion, tax issues, bank fraud, all that type of stuff. And the Washington, D.C. Case that's going on, that I think is supposed to be heard in May, Todd. Well, not May. I can't remember when that's
I think it's September or October.
September or October.
Yeah, it's coming
That
up.
one, Todd, is about what? Basically?
That's about the failure to register as a foreign agent.
That's right.
So
A foreign lobbying agent, specifically, right?
Yeah, and what happens is if you're going to lobby on behalf of a foreign entity,
right,
you have to register with the Department of Justice, and that's why we have a differing jurisdiction. The D.C. case is the tax case is in Virginia because that's where he resided
before Judge Ellis.
And the failure to register as a foreign agent lobbyist is in D.C. because the entity you have to register with is the DOJ there in D.C.
And that's Judge
And
Amy
that's where
Jackson.
a lot of the activities also occurred.
Right. Yes.
And there's a distinction between being a lobbyist domestically and foreign lobbyist. When you're domestic, if you're not lobbying officials or trying to get to politicians or something like that, there's a different procedure for the signing up to be, I'm registering to be that type of lobbyist. And so he initially started to argue he wasn't doing those type of things, but that doesn't matter when you are a foreign agent lobbyist.
Right. So there's an interesting thing that Todd and I were talking about, Denise, on Friday. Tell the statistics, Todd, that you found about someone being prosecuted for not registering as a foreign lobbyist.
And this comes right from the DOJ website. And the statistics, the history of prosecutions. Now, this law has been in place since the 30s and 40s. It was significantly amended to its current state, its current format, in about 1965, 1966. So since its amendment to its current format, there have been exactly 3 prosecutions for violation, none of which have resulted in convictions. It's a very difficult standard, very rarely relied upon by the DOJ for lawsuits, but that's what Paul Manafort is facing.
Okay.
In D.C., that trial is supposed to begin sometime later this
Right.
year.
In fact, Paul Manafort tried to move the Virginia trial to D.C. and put them together, and Judge Ellis denied that.
Yeah, so Judge Ellis is the Virginia judge. So let's back up another step. So what happened is in the D.C., it seemed like the D.C. one came forth first, and then once that happened, he was released on his own recognizance to be at home. It was a bond that he had to post.
Yes.
But apparently they claim he went out and started tampering with witnesses, and the judge, Amy Jackson in D.C., revoked his what do you call that?
Bail.
Revoked his release on bail.
And put him in jail in solitary confinement.
That's right. So he is now being held on a no bail hold. So if he prevails in Virginia, the trial that's going on right now, if he wins in Virginia and is acquitted of everything, he's still in solitary confinement under the authority of the D.C. case.
Right. So now we're going for. Go ahead, Denise.
Well, what's interesting in the Virginia case is that his accountants and CPAs now are really majorly involved, and one of them has turned state's evidence.
Yes, and so we're going to talk about that when we come back from the break. We're going to talk about the Virginia case that's going on now, the Washington one's coming up, and a little bit about Judge Ellis and what we as lawyers kind of know and have seen happen in courts before. I have with the judges. The key and most important thing as a lawyer, know your judge. Go ahead, Denise.
Give us a call at 855-LAW-RADIO and let us know what you think, or if you have any specific questions, we would love to answer them. Or tweet us at Radio Law Talk, or even use hashtag Radio Law Talk.
All advertising for legal services on Radio Law Talk is strictly for the state or states in which the advertiser is licensed. For more information, go to radiolawtalk.com.
Jason.
This is Denise Dirks. We can represent clients in divorce, legal separation, child and spousal support, custody, termination of parental rights, step-parent adoptions, guardianships, and even conservatorship matters. Call 1-877-886-7186 for a consultation.
The law offices of Denise L. Dirks provide family law services in Northern California. When the law affects your family, call 877-886-7186. The family of attorneys at Denise L. Dirks is here to help.
Hi, I'm Frederick Penny of Penny & Associates Injury Lawyers. I bet you're tired of hearing lawyer commercials, so just relax and listen to music for a few seconds. When you or a family member has been injured, call 800-616-4LAW or see us at pennyandassociates.com. See, that wasn't so bad.
Many women have so many clothes in the closet, but then we go to get dressed and find we have nothing to wear. We've all been there. We all want to be comfortable and fashionable at the same time, and it's difficult to find clothing that makes that task effortless. But at Letty & Company, you can find trendy, comfortable clothing that is affordable, things you'll want to wear every day. Shop with a purpose, online with free shipping. Just go to LETTYandcompany.com. LettyandCompany.com.
I've got to get my car washed. This dirt, it just won't do. But I don't have no time today. I don't know what I do.
Man, I know this place right down the road. Quick, quack, car wash. Hop inside, let's take a ride and watch this cat shine. Just come and see, I guarantee your ride will steal the show. Come on, quick, quack, car wash. Don't drive that dirty car. Quick, quack, car wash. They'll have you looking sharp. Come on.
Chris, can you put the video game controller down for a second?
I can talk and play. Oh, I'm totally annihilating this punk kid in Nebraska.
I just feel like you're not acting like a grown-up in our relationship.
Am too.
Well, you still ride your skateboard to work. There's the comic book collection, the race car bed.
Look, I'm young at heart, but I put money into my 401k every paycheck. I picked up a few savings tips at feedthepig.org. I have control of my financial life now, and that feels pretty grown up.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. Putting some money from every paycheck into a savings account or contributing to your 401k can make a big difference later. For free ideas and easy tips on ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
So, I bet I look like a grown-up to you now.
Well, except for the footy pajamas, I'd have to agree.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
Peekaboo, peekaboo, smile.
Smile, buddy.
Come on, smile. Oh, honey, he's still not smiling.
Maybe he's not a smiler.
Yeah, maybe he's just not a happy baby.
Maybe he's just being a boy. You know how boys are.
Or maybe he's teething. Oh, poor baby. I think his gums hurt.
Maybe he's just tired.
Or maybe his tummy hurts. He didn't eat that much.
Maybe he's not ticklish.
You think maybe he's scared of the dog?
Maybe he'll outgrow it. Maybe it's a phase. Maybe he just doesn't like smiling.
Maybe he has autism, and we can definitely do something to help.
Maybe is all you need to find out more about autism. No big, joyful smiles by 6 months is one early sign. Learn the others at autismspeaks.org/signs or see a doctor today for an autism screening. The sooner it's diagnosed, the better. And it can make a lifetime of difference. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Go to the website, radiolawtalk.com. You can listen to the show there, and there's a lot of other good information, too. That's radiolawtalk.com.
Oh, come on.
We're back talking about the Manafort trial, which is basically Mueller has brought this forth. A couple of things about Judge Ellis in the Virginia case. Judge Ellis is very, very well respected. He is a Harvard Law School grad. Other than that, Rodriguez was here. Luckily, he's a U.S. Navyman. He's a lieutenant. He was appointed by Reagan July 1st, 1987. This is part of the U.S. District Court of Virginia. He's issued over 1,000 published decisions. He is what's called senior status, and those of you who don't know what senior status is, senior status means that it's almost like a semi-retirement. They're still there, but they are a little they're retired. They're semi-retired. Okay. He's had a number of famous Taliban cases. The famous John Walker Lynn case, American Taliban. He was the one that sentenced him. He was the sentencing judge, and
he's 78 years old, and he doesn't have to do like full-on scheduling, right?
Yep.
Doesn't that
That's
what
right.
it means? But he can take cases as he needs to.
31 years on the bench is a long time.
Cal, you have a caller.
Yeah, Angel is on the telephone, and he has a question for us about Judge Ellis.
Go ahead.
Hey, so I noticed that Judge Ellis is he does weird things on the bench, maybe because it's been there so long. So my question is it normal for judges, or maybe just Judge Ellis, to be kind of funny?
Okay, thanks for the call.
I would say often judges have a sense of humor, and sometimes it's twisted. I've seen a judge have a case before him where there was a particular people before him were a certain race, and he had a little bobblehead doll of that race, and that little bobblehead was going around on his desk. That to me was off color, and I didn't really think that was appreciated, but that was his sense of humor.
I've come across judges that have senses of humor. There's some judges I've come across that, if you didn't know any better, you'd think they could host like Letterman or Late Night because they're just really funny. I had an incident once with a judge who knew me and always liked to give me crap for a better term, and it was always in jest. It was never serious. And I had a case there with a client, and his family was there, and all we were doing was seeking a simple continuance, and this judge is filling in, and the judge starts giving me grief. Well, Mr. Cunin, why don't we do this? Why am I not taking somebody in the cut? And he's messing with me the whole time, and I get it. And then the judge grants the continuance, and we go to walk out, and my client's family is white as a sheet, paranoid because they think it was all serious.
Yeah.
And they didn't know. And I said, look, the judge was just messing with me. Your son was never going to go into custody. So that's where it can really start to cross the line.
Well, you're trained, too. As a judge, you're trained not to let that happen, actually.
Right.
You're not supposed to point out one side or the other.
Don't you think the problem is that sometimes they just sit up there in those robes and they get bored? So they have to kind of come up with some pithy comments and maybe do something to inject a little humor into the whole thing.
Well, I'll tell you right now.
Seems like it's a boring job.
You are identifying why Todd Cunin could never be a judge.
I'll tell you right now, I know a number of judges, and some of the problems that they have, and judges really have this issue. Here's the inside look. Some of them try not to laugh.
Yes.
Sometimes it's funny, or it's a real serious thing that is a funny.
A word would set you off sometime just in the wrong way.
Or sometimes it's like a real serious trial, and as there is one trial, as the two of them dressed up in Darth Maul costumes, and okay, and how do you as a judge not laugh?
I had a trial once as a prosecutor, and the defense attorney said something during closing argument that was it was a female, and it was a sexual reference of nature germane to the trial. But she said that during closing argument to the jury. And, I know the judge, I know the clerk. I could not look to my left where the judge and the clerk and everybody was, because if I did, we would have all lost it. It was hilarious, but you had to keep your face down, look forward.
And
nothing
Judge
to
Ellis,
see here.
Judge Ellis, he gets kind of mad. The funny thing is, the prosecutors are getting into lavish spending and having all this money for suits and spending over $1 million on these suits and that makes Judge Ellis mad. He's like, hello, we are not here to prove that this guy is an overspender.
It's not a crime to have money, and it's not a crime to spend too much of it.
Exactly. Just because enough is enough, he said, because we don't convict people because they have a lot of money and throw it around and show off, right?
Here's something that's interesting. I think one of the more interesting things that we can get into that people don't probably understand is at when they're opening statements, the judge hammered the prosecutor because he kept bringing out evidence, and he didn't say the important words that we know you have to say. The evidence will show, and he kept saying, this is just basically proving his case. And the judge says, you mean the evidence will show that is. So those of you who don't understand this part, when you in an opening of a trial, you're just kind of telling what's going to happen. This is not evidence.
Proof.
Yeah, you're not. This is not evidence. But so you have to say the proof will show, the evidence will show. And the judge hammered on the prosecutor for saying, you're not saying the word or the words specifically, the evidence will show, and you need to do that. The judge kept telling him.
There's a key distinction that I see just biffed all the time in news articles. And it is in what they call the opening and the closing. In the opening, it's an opening statement. In the closing, it's a closing argument.
Right.
You don't argue the case in the opening. And the distinction here is, in a closing argument, now you're free to tell the jury what the evidence means, how you want them to interpret it, and everything. At the statement, in the opening statement, it's just, this is what we intend to show you. And it keeps it as allegations versus argument, and Judge Ellis is reeling in the prosecution to keep them from arguing in their opening statements.
In fact, sometimes, have you said this? I've said it at the very beginning. Now, everything I say now or in this opening statement is what we're going to show or the evidence is going to show. Even though you say it every once in a while, sometimes you forget to say it, so you don't tick the judge off. But that's the first thing he's jumping on. So we're going to get into more issues of Judge Ellis and his personalities and some fun things that he's doing. And then we're going to talk about details of the case, what's going on, how it's going to affect the case, and as us lawyers, have we seen this happen before? We'll be right back with Radio Law Talk.
There's more Radio Law Talk coming up right here. All advertising for legal services on Radio Law Talk is strictly for the state or states in which the advertiser is licensed. For more information, go to radiolawtalk.com.
Business needs growth to survive, and Accelerate U is in the business of growing your business. Accelerate U gets it. They have sales professionals, real top talent teams. Accelerate U has venture capitalists, and Accelerate U has strategic partners who roll up their sleeves and help you grow your business. It's what they do. They help people in business just like you. In fact, last year, Accelerate U launched 30 successful go-to markets for startup companies. With success like that, you can see why Accelerate U is able to only work with a select group of companies, perhaps yours. If you want to increase revenue for your business, call 916-BETTER-0. That's 916-237-7370. 916-BETTER-0. Come on. Grab the phone. Make the call. Accelerate U. 916-BETTER-0. Again, call 916-BETTER-0 for Accelerate U.
My name is Frederick Penny of Penny & Associates Injury Lawyers. I've assembled an excellent team of highly experienced personal injury trial lawyers. We understand the other side, which gives us a distinct advantage over our competition. At Penny & Associates, we will aggressively represent you and your family when someone has been injured in an accident. Remember, we don't get paid unless we win.
For a free initial consultation, go to pennylawyers.com or call 1-800-616-4LAW and ask for Frederick, Stuart, Rob, Kevin, Kent, or Will. That's Frederick Penny at Penny & Associates Injury Lawyers, 1-800-616-4LAW.
This is Denise Dirks. We can represent clients in divorce, legal separation, child and spousal support, custody, termination of parental rights, step-parent adoptions, guardianships, and even conservatorship matters. Call 1-877-886-7186 for a consultation.
The law offices of Denise L. Dirks provide family law services in Northern California. When the law affects your family, call 877-886-7186. The family of attorneys at Denise L.
Attention timeshare owners. This is an urgent consumer alert from Resort Release, a national company specializing in helping consumers legally get rid of their expensive timeshares. Once you've made that decision to get rid of your timeshare for any reason, Resort Release is offering a Better Business Bureau accredited way to legally get rid of your timeshare, guaranteed. We guaranteed to get rid of your timeshare payments permanently. Even if you've tried another company to get rid of your expensive timeshare, call now and see if we can help you. At Resort Release, you don't pay anything until you're ready. If you're ready to learn how to permanently get rid of your costly timeshare, make this complimentary free call right now.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967.
Talking about Judge Ellis.
It's Law Jam. We have your in personam jurisdiction.
Law Jam with Doug Keaton.
We'll be exchanging legal briefs later on in the show.
Hard pass. All right, Denise, so we're talking about Ellis. Tell us some funny things. You were talking about some things that he's done.
I just loved it because when somebody said that, let's see, the prosecutor said that they may or may not call Gates. And Gates seems to be pretty much somebody that's going to have to be.
He was a co-defendant in the case.
And he's now turned state's evidence.
Yes.
And once that was said, all the reporters ran out of the room to go get get that out in the news right away. And Ellis said that the court reporters, they scurried out of there like rats running out of a sinking ship.
That's awesome.
He actually said that, and I thought that was the funniest thing.
He doesn't care. Why? That's why he doesn't care.
Exactly. He says, I don't care if you're going to call him. You know who you're going to call. If you're going to call him, then this debate over this exhibit is a waste of time. Yeah. So he got upset because they were trying to get an exhibit in that really should have been brought in with Gates being the one to authenticate it.
Right.
And they were trying to get it in the back doorway, and there's a big fight over it, and he's like, you call him.
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that anytime there is an argument over the admissibility of evidence, or they're arguing over who's going to call a witness at what time and when this happens, when that argument arises, the court will have the jury leave the jury box so that this is not taking place in front of the jury, so that all the jury hears is the evidence that the court has already said I will or will not allow to come in. And the only time they ever hear a debate is if somebody asks a question that the other side thinks is inappropriate, like a hearsay question. So the jury will hear something like this: objection, hearsay, overruled, and they move on. That's the only thing that the jury is supposed to hear. So these statements, that Judge Ellis is making about rats scurrying away from a sinking ship, and other comments he's made about admonishing the attorneys for rolling their eyes as they get up to leave the courtroom, when Judge Ellis told the prosecution, well, if you don't call Gates, I don't see how you're going to make your case, which is something significant Fred and I can talk about in just a moment. Those type statements are not occurring in front of the jury, because if they were, the prosecution would have a huge problem. The defense would have a huge problem, and they'd look at having to do this thing over again. Both sides would be saying, regardless of the outcome, that it was inappropriately tainted by the judge. The better argument would be the defense for making those statements.
So we can keep mentioning Gates. Gates is a business partner and worked under Manafort under the Trump campaign, and was like a consultant, a political consultant with Paul Manafort. But here's the interesting thing. So they both got charged, right?
That's right.
What happened, though, Gates turned state's evidence and said he'll testify, basically, we assume, against Manafort. for a lesser sentencing, or we don't know the details of that.
I'm not sure that he got charged in the Virginia case. The D.C. case,
he
right?
got charged in both.
He did. Okay.
Yes. So here's my point. My point is, this is very interesting that we need to understand. They dropped the charges against him without prejudice.
That's right.
Now, what people say, what does that mean? Why is that important? Because they still have him on the hook. Without prejudice means the DA or the prosecutors or the government can recharge him. So depending upon what this guy, Gates, is going to testify, if they don't like it, they can recharge him. And so that's what's interesting. They almost, I don't want to say it's extortion because it's not, but it's like, if you don't testify the way we want you to, we're going to charge you.
Yeah, but what if, now just the other side of this, what if Manafort testifies against Gates? Then they could bring charges based on Manafort's testimony as well.
They could.
Against Gates.
They could, except that when you look at the overall scheme of this, the big fish they're going after is Manafort, and the reason they're going after Manafort is because ultimately Mueller is. So look at it this way: Mueller has put pressure on Gates to turn on Manafort. What they really want to do is put pressure on Manafort to turn against Trump.
Right.
Okay? Because the overall, and this is what Ellis has said here, in pretrial rulings, he came right out in the middle of one argument with these guys saying, you guys don't want Manafort. You guys don't want him. What you really want is Trump.
Yeah, and they said it's political.
And he said, this is political. You're going after this guy because the person you really want is the guy sitting in the White House. And that made news about a month and a half ago when he said this.
Right.
And look, I'm not going to – I can't sit here and say that Mueller – look, when there's smoke, there's fire. That's what Mueller is of the opinion of. And I think that he is looking at Manafort saying, hold on a second here. Here's a guy who worked as a lobbyist for the Ukrainian president or dictator.
Which was pro-Russia at the time.
Which was pro-Russia at the time. And he was running your campaign for a period of time.
And then there was contact between your people and Russians.
And ultimately had to step down ostensibly because the public found out about the relationship between Manafort and the Ukrainian president. And so, you know, if he is the leader of your campaign and he has ties with Russia and there is evidence that, or the allegation that Russia is helping the Trump campaign, Manafort may have some very useful information for us. But Manafort has clammed up and not said a thing to them, and they're trying to put pressure on him to see if he'll talk.
Yeah, but I do think that he may be guilty of some crimes.
Well,
they found some Cyprus accounts. Now, he's not ever disclosed these Cyprus accounts. That is big. That is big.
Now, here's the thing. He may be guilty of some crimes, but let's look at the punishment the Department of Justice is seeking here. They are seeking a period of incarceration for Manafort that will result in his incarceration for the rest of his natural life. And so they are trying to – this is the analysis from the pundits and everybody, and I can't say that it's wrong. It appears they are trying to put pressure on Manafort to say, if you ever hope to see freedom again, if you have information about Mr. Trump, we need it. And that's what Judge Ellis was calling them out on, essentially saying –
if this is about politics, let it go.
Isn't that the ultimate fishing expedition, to hold a guy hostage for information he may or may not have? Is this normal business inside the courts? I mean,
yeah, of course it is.
How can it be?
It can be if the underlying prosecution of Manafort for the income tax evasion and for the failure to register as a foreign agent, if those actually are meritorious, well, then, yeah, you can. Mm-hmm. You can't, no pun intended, you can't trump up charges.
Right, but you are negotiating some kind of a thing with him at that point. You come through for me, I'll come through for you.
Yes.
Well, they haven't negotiated that.
But I'm saying you can't just put a guy in a cell and say, look, you're going to be here forever unless you come through with some unknown information that we think you might have.
But let's look at what's happened in this case so far, okay? So they have done that with Gates.
True.
They have made promises of some lesser, we don't know the extent of it, but they've done that with Gates. He is no longer a prosecuted co-defendant in this case and is a witness for the prosecution against Manafort at some point in time.
But he is a convicted felon.
That's true, but whatever deal he got was for a lesser punishment. The accountant that testified yesterday, to the extent that she turned evidence against Trump, against Manafort, did so in exchange for immunity from being prosecuted. And so she's not going to do that unless they come to her and say, look, we have you on this and this and this and this and this, and we're willing to let it go.
And they do.
If you turn.
Because the falsified tax returns she signed. And as a person signing those, would have been in big trouble.
Right. So the real question is, how deep are they willing to go into this campaign for what started off as a Russian collusion case, and all we're talking about are fairly standard financial crimes by some crooked operators who play at the high level?
The only thing,
but Russian collusion is really not a crime. Collusion is not a crime.
I know,
it's implied in conspiracy. I get that, but it started out as Russian collusion, and what they did find is Russian collusion. They have found, allegedly, Manafort's connection with the Ukrainian pro-Russian president that paid him a lot of money for influence.
That's Manafort. How is that Trump yet?
We're not talking. Don't mix them up.
We've got 15 seconds left, but really quickly, Cal, to answer your question. They will go as far as they believe the perpetrator went to cover it up.
We'll be right back. Talk more about this right after we take our headsets off.
But only temporarily, because there's more Radio Law Talk coming right up, right here. The cost of getting rid of garbage is high, and recycling products is lucrative. If you're a business or know of a business that needs an individual compactor or baler, call Northwest Compacting at 888-201-0911. If you already have an industrial compactor, baler, or shredder and need service, don't forget to call Northwest Compacting at 888-201-0911. Northwest Compacting, your full-service industrial compacting and baling company. Read more about them at northwestcompacting.com.
Many women have so many clothes in the closet, but then we go to get dressed and find we have nothing to wear. We've all been there. We all want to be comfortable and fashionable at the same time, and it's difficult to find clothing that makes that task effortless. But at Letty & Company, you can find trendy, comfortable clothing that is affordable. Things you'll want to wear every day. Shop with a purpose, online with free shipping. Just go to LETTYandcompany.com. LettyandCompany.com.
Business needs growth to survive, and Accelerate You is in the business of growing your business. Accelerate You gets it. They have sales professionals, real top talent teams. Accelerate You has venture capitalists, and Accelerate You has strategic partners who roll up their sleeves and help you grow your business. It's what they do. They help people in business just like you. In fact, last year, Accelerate You launched 30 successful go-to markets for startup companies. With success like that, you can see why Accelerate You is able to only work with a select group of companies, perhaps yours. If you want to increase revenue for your business, call 916-BETTER-0. That's 916-237-7370. 916-BETTER-0. Come on, grab the phone. Make the call. Accelerate You. 916-BETTER-0. Again, call 916-BETTER-0 for Accelerate You.
All advertising for legal services on Radio Law Talk is strictly for the state or states in which the advertiser is licensed. For more information, go to radiolawtalk.com. The following announcement brought to you by SacramentoLawyer.com.
Finding the right lawyer for your particular needs can be confusing. With all the commercials and listings, and who's to say whether the lawyers there are even any good at what they do? So when you're looking for a lawyer, it makes sense to find someone local with the experience and expertise in that area of the law where you have a need. That's why there is SacramentoLawyer.com. SacramentoLawyer.com. At SacramentoLawyer.com, you just browse the site, free, and see the Facebook reviews on the firms you're considering with just a simple mouse click. That way you learn a little bit more about the lawyers there before you start making this critical decision. And there's no pressure. Use the right tool to find the lawyer that's best for you by going to SacramentoLawyer.com. SacramentoLawyer.com. That's SacramentoLawyer.com.
I'm a veteran. We hit a mine in Vietnam. When I came home, I didn't know where to turn.
As America's veterans face challenges, DAV is there.
My victory's been never giving up hope. My wife is always there to remind me we have a life to live.
DAV provides a lifetime of support, helping veterans of every generation get the benefits they've earned.
I am a veteran, but after I got out, I spent 2 years alone and homeless.
Every year, DAV helps more than 1 million veterans so they can reach victories great and small.
My victory was finding the support to get back on my feet. Now I'm getting things right with my family.
I finally admitted, with my PTSD, I wasn't doing well.
But there's more to be done and more victories to be won.
Now I wish I'd found DAV sooner. I am a veteran. My victory is just enjoying each day.
All around the world. This is RadioLawTalk.com.
Literally all around the world on the Armed Forces Radio Network. You're listening to Radio Law Talk. Here's your host, Fred Penny.
We're having a good time. Todd, follow up as a criminal lawyer. What happens when, like Gates testifies, which he hasn't testified yet, what the jury's going to find out about Gates and his deal?
The jury instructions and the courts and case law has all said that when a witness testifies, anything bearing on their possible motivations for testifying, it's fair game for the defense to ask. So when Gates, if he testifies, says whatever he says, the defense is entitled to come in and ask over any objection from the prosecution. If any objection be overruled, they're entitled to come in and say, what deal did you strike in order to get you to testify here? You know,
and wouldn't you say anything to save your own self?
That, you know, and you know, the common response when they say that, like nobody, for example, would respond to that and say, you know what, you're right, I would say anything. They're all going to say, no, I wanted to do the right thing and stuff. But the implication, we talked before about closing argument, okay, where each side gets to tell the jury how they think the jury should interpret the evidence, how they argue what the evidence means.
And the testimony, right?
That's, yeah, and I'm using evidence in its broadest sense. That is where they would say, ladies and gentlemen, you heard Gates testify that this and this and this happened, but you heard him also testify that he had immunity and he was facing a long time. And our argument, and this is what the defense is going to argue, the person really culpable here is Gates, because the argument that we have seen that the defense team has always said is Gates was the one whose hand was found in the cookie jar, and now he's spinning this yarn to avoid his own prosecution, because Gates was the guy who was left in charge of all of the money, and if anything is amiss, it's because of what Gates was doing, not because of what Manafort was doing. He trusted Gates, and now he's having to pay for Gates' mistake, and Gates now cut this great deal to sell Manafort down the river. That's going to be the argument made based upon the evidence. If an expert witness testifies, jury's allowed to find out how much they're being paid.
Yep.
You know, if this tax accountant that was the accountant that testified.
There were two accountants. One was tax.
The one that testified yesterday. The jury's entitled to hear that she testified under an immunity agreement. The argument being, why would somebody need an immunity agreement if they hadn't done something wrong too? Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, there could be something here.
Well, if she didn't, well, hang on. I'm going to argue the other way, which is if she didn't have an immunity agreement, she would have had to plead the fifth, and it would never get before the jury. So the only way to get her testimony in was to give her immunity if she told the truth.
Arguments on both sides.
If she doesn't tell the truth, the immunity goes away.
That's right. Arguments on both sides, but the defense is going to argue, if she didn't do anything wrong, what does she need an immunity agreement for? It goes all around. But you're right, Fred. Anybody who testifies, the jury is entitled to hear what sort of compensation, whether it be monetary compensation for experts or a deal that was struck, they're able to hear
or
that.
Relationships too.
They're able
whether there was existing relationships between the prosecutor and an expert, whether or not they typically testify on behalf of the prosecution or the defense all the time. I mean, all of those kind of little nuances they get to ask questions on.
Yeah, we had to. Yeah. We had an investigator or a defense expert used to come in doing toxicology evidence, And they never testified for the prosecution, hadn't testified for a prosecution in probably 20, 25 years. And by that point in time, it got to be where somebody would testify, and you're like, you basically think that no prosecution is ever viable in a DUI case, do you? You always testify for the defense. And yes, I do. And, jury's entitled to hear that because now that's their bias that they come in. They don't think anything
exactly.
is right.
So this case we're going to be watching. I don't think it's going to take as long as they thought initially because Judge Ellis has been really clear. This is not going beyond 3 weeks. We're going to get it done in 3 weeks, and I'm going to make sure that it gets done in 3 weeks. And he is really good at controlling his courtroom.
One of the reasons that I suspected he said that, because he said that in connection with if Gates doesn't testify, you don't have a case type scenario. In federal court, there's Rule 29. And Rule 29 allows for either the court on their own motion or on the motion of the defense at the conclusion of the prosecution's case to make a motion for basically a directed verdict, an acquittal, for lack of evidence sufficient. Basically, the idea is no reasonable jury could convict on this evidence. And the motion can be brought by the court or made by the defense at the conclusion of the prosecution's case in chief or at the conclusion of the defense in any rebuttal before the case gets submitted to the jury. And so when Judge Ellis came out and said, first, if you don't call Gates, you don't have a case, in essence, and then said subsequent to that, I see this case being done a lot earlier than anyone anticipated. My first thought was, well, there's a problem there for the prosecution from a Rule 29 standpoint, that the court either on their own motion or on the motion of the defense could say, you didn't call him, there's not enough evidence, and could grant that as to some counts. However,
I didn't read Ellis's comments that way. I didn't see him saying if you don't call Gates, you don't have a case. What I heard him say is, you know who you're going to call. You know how much, how long it's going to take. If he's not going to be called, it's going to be a shorter case. That's kind of what I heard.
I think he did lean to saying you don't have a case unless you call Gates. That's pretty much what he's leading on. But here's the other interesting thing. Don't forget, this jury sitting here, all defense has to show is get one person to just kind of go. Don't forget, it's beyond a reasonable doubt is the standard. That is a very high standard, and just one person say I have doubt, then guess who wins? Defense. It's going to be tough for the prosecutors to push it that far with all these conspiracy. If I'm defense lawyer, I am bringing up the conspiracy issue. I'm bringing up the fact that everybody's pleading and everyone's in the prosecutor and Mueller's back pocket. I'm going to bring up this is political. I'm bringing up this is a witch hunt. I'm bringing all that stuff up, and all you need is one person on that jury to say, you know what? I don't think the evidence is beyond a reasonable doubt, and you win.
You do and you don't, and I'll tell you why. Let's say there's 12 people on this jury.
Yep, I believe so. I don't. Virginia, I don't know the federal. Okay, so
let's assume it's 12 people. Let's assume it's 12 people on the jury, and one person sides with the defense and says no, and so they're hung. It's a hung jury. They can't unanimously come to an agreement, and the split is 11-1 for conviction, but you have one juror that's a holdout. The court in that situation would declare a mistrial, and the case could be retried.
That's correct.
All right. Now, the split is very important. Oftentimes, when there's a split, the court will say, without telling me which way the split goes, tell me what the split is.
Yes.
And so the jury would say it's 11-1. They don't tell the court, but you know what? They wait outside. They sit around. They talk to the lawyers. Some juror is going to tell a lawyer, yeah, it was 10-2. It was 11-1 for conviction. Once the prosecution hears that, if it's an 11-1 split for conviction, they'll retry it. If it's 10-2, they'll retry it. The closer you get to, 6-6, or even if it goes the majority was going to vote to acquit versus convict, it gets harder to justify a reprosecution. So that is where you're at. But the problem with retrying the case is now the evidence is out there. Now the public has heard it a lot, and it's more difficult to sit a jury that hasn't already heard what all the evidence is going to be and already made up their mind.
Yeah, well, I have one question for you. When you say that it's a hung jury, you're not talking physical attribute, right?
I'm not. I'm not.
Did Denise just say something that Cal should have dumped?
I just want you to know that it appears that Chris Rodriguez.
I had to lighten the load, guys.
Chris Rodriguez is channeling himself through Denise.
What the
That's
heck?
exactly
just
right.
happened?
That just happened.
Look at Cal.
It's like
can you believe what just happened?
Here we are. We're talking about people impaneled in a jury, and Denise is talking about whether they have ropes around their necks.
Sure, or people being impaled by the jury. But
don't forget, Denise likes rooftops.
I'm sorry. I just had to lighten the load. It got too serious. It got too serious. Let's have some fun now, guys.
I agree with you, Denise, but that's not your role in Radio Law Talk. That's the boys' role. You're the one that keeps us on the straight and narrow, and I can't believe you just threw us off the tracks.
Word.
I was on vacation last week. What can I say?
I'm alerting the media.
If we had 30 seconds left, I would just have Cal play music just to let it ride out. But we have 15 seconds left. We'll be right back, and who knows what we're going to talk about third hour. We have case or no case, third hour coming up.
You have been listening to RadioLawTalk.com, a copyrighted presentation of Radio Law Talk Incorporated.
So here's a great question. How much would you save if you joined Medishare for your healthcare program? The typical savings for a family is about $500 a month. You might save more. Tammy left a major company and needed a new way ahead for her family. She'd heard about the savings with Medishare, but was wondering about the network of providers.
Once we started the program, I have not had to switch one doctor for myself or for my kids. So all the doctors that we were previously with were all in Medishare.
And she says the process has been fantastic.
I got off the phone and I was like, that's what it should be like. It was a pleasurable experience. An encouraging experience at that.
Medishare might be just the thing you're looking for your family, your budget. Use the savings for other things. Why not get your questions answered? Find out how much you can save. You can call right now. 833-39-BIBLE. That's 833-39-BIBLE. 833-39-BIBLE.